Hello and welcome to Fintech Focus TV. I'm Toby and delighted to be joined today by Roy Saadon from Access Fintech. Roy, how are you?
Very good, sir. Thank you very much.
Great to see you. Listen, thanks so much for coming in. Just been hearing a bit about the journey so far. Really exciting time for Access Fintech. Well done. You featured in the Financial Technologist Definitive List, the most influential fintechs of 2019. Come a long way since launching in 2016.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about the journey. Tell us a little bit about the business.
Yeah. I'll start by saying thank you for including us in the list.
Absolute pleasure.
We're honoured, and it's a good sign that we are being taken notice of in that market.
Definitely.
About us a little bit. We started in the middle of 2016, raised some money through a private investment, kept it low-key for a while, and then in the end of 2018, we raised money from 4 investment banks. That was really the springboard to getting to where we are now.
Yeah.
What we are doing is creating a slightly different ecosystem, which is shared by banks, buy-side custodians, asset managers. And the objective is, how do we optimize operational risk? How do we share risk in the context of exceptions? How do we collaborate? And I think that we really, startups is all about timing. Had we been here 2 years earlier saying the words cloud and collaboration and sharing of data, it probably would have been maybe in a few years' time, not right now.
Yeah.
We seem to have come at a place where the finances of cloud are so compelling, the banks are themselves internally moving to cloud, which means it's a bit easier for a firm like us to say, I'm also on the cloud, let me meet the same criteria that you have. So there's already a path you have to take in order to fulfill the governance committee within the banks and the buy side. And I think also the internal review on everything around cost and optimization and working capital that's locked up against fines and locked up against risk profiles, all that has changed the way the banks look at operations. And as a knock-on effect, looks at the way the buy side, their clients look at operations.
Yeah.
And everyone's a lot more open to collaboration on process and collaboration of data if it's non-competitive and if it's non-differentiating. And the barrier of what's non-competitive and non-differentiating, I think that's what changed. A lot more things are being put in that zone inside the fence of I'm okay sharing information and workflow on that because we all have to do it. And it's not necessarily differentiating, but if we can do it more efficiently, then we're more open-minded about collaboration.
Yeah.
So, we kind of caught that tsunami wave at the right time to give us momentum.
Timing's so important, isn't it? And I think that's a really interesting aspect of what you say there, because it is so imperative that businesses plan, and particularly in this fintech, and I say this all the time, to answer the right questions, to strike at the right time with the right area. With that, there's pluses and minuses, obviously. So striking at the right time can be fads. There's businesses that have been based solely around certain areas of legislation, or businesses that have caught something there that's the hot topic one day and fish and chip paper the next. This to me feels, the area that you're in feels like a much longer term play, right?
Yeah.
Does that come into your thinking as well? Yes.
When I look at the fintech evolution, we kind of broke it down into a fintech 1.0 and a fintech 2.0. The 1.0 was a lot more about disruption in a replacement context. We can replace banks. We can have nimble solutions. The ecosystem is evil. Let's replace that.
Yeah.
I think 2.0 is a bit more of a mature cycle where we're saying the banks themselves and the buy side themselves and the custodians do want to change. They're our clients. They have their whole client base. They're a massive distribution list. They have the credit and the assets under management. Once they get to that openness where they're open to change, is how do we harness that? So I think of the second wave as becoming a bit more collaborative with the current ecosystem and helping the ecosystem do the change. The other challenge was there are so many interesting technologies out there. And a lot of them, the fintech is all about being laser focused on one function, doing it much better than a bank or a buy side can do, but that's the only thing I do. The downside of that is if I wanted to replace my infrastructure, there's a lot of these fintechs I need to somehow build and kludge together.
Yeah.
So I get a bit nervous about how does this even function and give me scale on the long term. So the barriers always change. Initially it was about not necessarily trust and maturity. Now the technology is a bit more mature, but there's a lot of it. How do I harness it together? So I always come up against the next frontier.
Yeah.
But I do think that operationally, the banks are looking to change the way they behave. They look at what Google do, what Amazon do, and they see that as a threat, and they think these are firms built on technology. They're very nimble, they're very agile, their cost basis is different.
Yeah.
How do we look at that as a model? And to do that, you really kind of start being a bit more open-minded about technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't mean it's an easy ride. You get a lot of resistance points, but they change over time, and the ones we have now are already a bit more mature, and I think it's an easier discussion if you know how to sell to banks. And that's still something I tell a lot of startup entrepreneurs. It's not necessarily about the technology. It's not about I've got a great toolkit, you the bank need me.
Yeah.
It's understanding also how the bank needs to buy it, how they look at risk, what the cost of change is internally. It's not always about the pure tech.
Yeah.
So a bit of having done it the second time, you really get a lot of scars, but you have a bit more experience on.
Because this is exactly the point, isn't it? You are a now serial fintech entrepreneur. You've had success historically. Your second time now, your second incarnation in launching a successful sale last time out with a great business. Tell us what are some of the key learns that you've had from that? It's a bit funny because you go back to basics. I feel like sometimes I'm in an MBA school and I'm giving a lecture. Cash is king. It takes longer to close deals. It takes longer to get into the bank infrastructure. It takes longer to enforce change. You really have to make sure, at least at the early stages, that you manage cash appropriately. Yeah.
If you build a business plan and you think that the cash will take you to 2 years from now and you're going to have a bit of revenue, you have to assume it's going to be 3 years from now to get the revenue. How do you do that? How do you manage that activity?
Yeah.
So cash management and cash perseverance is very important.
Yeah.
It almost gets to the point when you get past your Series A or Series B, depending when you have the ability to fund and grow, you almost have to let go because now you have to behave like a different creature. So you have to morph into someone who's a bit more growth-oriented than ready for the lean and mean times. So I would say that early stages, it is about cash perseverance, and it is also about understanding that a deal will take longer. Finding the right sponsor within the bank doesn't mean that you still don't have a 12 to 18 months cycle just to be approved as a vendor by a bank. You have to bake it into the equation. All that has got to be taken into account.
Yeah.
Also, I think banks want to see longevity. They like technology. They want to see you around in 2 years' time. Sometimes they will wait the time to see that you're not one of the fintechs that just ran out of cash. So you really have to plan for that. Perseverance, go in, show persistence, show value, improve the story all the time.
Why do you think so many people fail to do that? Because it is so common, isn't it? I've run events for 5 years with people sort of clamouring at the banks, saying how they should improve procurement, and it doesn't happen. I mean, maybe with a little bit more of this collaborative world that we live in at the moment, and the banks being more open to working with fintechs, that you see a little bit of a thawing of that particular position. But it's not a surprise. But it consistently seems to be one of the reasons that inhibits or terminates fintech businesses.
I'll present the positive angle of it. You were hardly able to sell a cloud solution to the banks 3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Today you have cloud solutions, so they're definitely adopting. But as part of that, it's a data game, and you have your client's data, and you're going to put it at the hands of some provider who's outside your firewall in a cloud environment. They're naturally nervous. But now there's a process for that. So there is an improvement, but that process is a new process and is being worked out. And there's all these security restrictions that are applied on you, which make it a long process when you are a young company. When we started, we didn't have a security officer. That was a condition to sell to the bank. We're a young company. We were taking encryption at a certain level, and the banks wanted a higher level. So some of it wasn't just the process. Some of it was, okay, what homework do I have to do to change my stack? They love the idea. They love the technology. I don't pass the governance and security cycle. So I need to go and do homework and come back second time around, hoping I didn't lose the sponsor or didn't lose momentum, and come back and show that I'm learning and I'm getting better. So I do think it's actually a better environment to be in, but you just have to be ready for the fact that the initial sales, the clients are nervous clients, and they're going to be they're going to take their time doing it.
There's a lot of risk for everyone involved in that process, isn't there? And it does need that sort of support from it. And I guess your experience of that first time around has really tempered this second piece. And planning, I think, is doesn't matter whether it's a financial technology business, doesn't matter whether it's a product business. It's planning in worst case scenario as opposed to I've seen people recently looking for investment into recruitment businesses.
Yeah.
And exactly the same thing. It's this is what we're going to do, and you look at it and think it's hugely unlikely that those, and people don't have that sort of that rainy day mentality to things. It's interesting.
I would say you look at blockchain without taking any opinion whether it's how it's doing. I look at the amount of revenue generated by the companies in blockchain. It's still minimal, but they're still funded and they're growing and they're getting market share.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that dynamic. The appetite is there. The industry wants it to succeed.
Yeah.
But the amount of revenue I'm able to generate at this early stage is still minimal. So if I'm not aligning my expenses to the potential is there, but I'm running out of steam as I get there. So it really is a lot about that activity. If you're in blockchain, you're a bit luckier in that it is a topic that attracts investment from a longer cycle.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of companies don't have that benefit, and they have that seed, maybe a Series A, and they just run of it because that wonderful rainbow is still there. You just never go to actually touch it. So.
Coming back to something which you started at the top of the conversation, which is timing and investing into the right areas. So you've looked at cloud technology and such. I've seen okay, now is the right time to move into that. You are a proven successful entrepreneur in the space, which means you make the right decisions on when to put things into action. With that in mind now, and getting your crystal ball out and looking at the market in 2019, where do you think the real opportunities are? Other than where you are at the moment, of course.
I would go back and say that being successful in previous initiatives doesn't mean I make the right decisions. I hope I'm not making the same mistakes. I'm here to make new mistakes, right? It's a big distinction. There's so many. It's just like, you got to constantly improve. I think we're in the middle of this whole collaboration discussion. That's the space that kind of we believe in. And I look at it as a business change rather than technology. I don't care if it's blockchain. I don't care if it's AI. I don't care if it's initiative like ours. The collaboration is a big change in the process. Now, collaboration can be at 3 levels. I can collaborate on technology. Yeah. The banks or the buy side will actually share the cost of technology. I can collaborate on process and have a shared process that goes across more than one participant, and I can collaborate on data. The early initiatives that didn't always succeed tried to do everything. Let's take the entire stack and take technology from the banks and processes and share, and they did everything, and that was a complicated process. I look at the layers. I try and say, where are you fitting in your world? Our objective is to create a shared workflow. I need data for that, but I'm not the golden source, and I don't pretend to be. I'm using data for the purpose of sharing workflow. If I'm a bank and I have a problem with a client on some processing event, an inventory management, a credit breach, a regulatory issue, I often can't fix it myself, so I'm dragging that counterpart to the discussion. But I might be the prime broker, and now I need the executing broker to be in. So now it's 3 firms who all interact on a single activity. I need to find a way to create a standardized way of doing it, which has an impact on data and other things. But I'm not touching, for example, shared operations. Shared operations is an opportunity for a whole different firm with a different DNA. So I look at collaboration across the 3 stacks. I think they're very important. I think the banks and the buy side are looking to focus on what is really differentiating. Now, I've been using that line for 20 years now, selling to banks. I always do what's differentiating, but it does feel like the market's a bit more open to defining differently what's differentiating.
It definitely
so
is.
Everything was differentiating initially. Now, there's certain pieces that are saying, well, you all do the same, and technology is commoditizes certain places. So why do we have to build in-house the same thing over? Why do we have to do reference data? It's a utility. There's got to be a different way of doing it. So I think there are places where that changes. So I look at it from a collaboration, but there's a technology collaboration as well, where people say, we're going to pick a standardized tech stack and share the cost for that instead of building a non-differentiating infrastructure.
What do you think has led to that? I mean, because it is very different, isn't it, from being so secretive and competitive and everyone, and sort of an arms race for latency and advantage and such like. It is so much more and noticeably more collaborative and much more of a community in both the buy side and the sell side. What's been behind that?
Listen, I take it back all the way to the 2008 crisis. I think there are a lot of knock-on effects that in hindsight it's clear to see the path, but at the time we didn't. Part of what happened then is all the banks took out all their proprietary trading that they had in-house, and they all became external clients that they service. But they, in that era of growth, I was investing a lot in headcount to facilitate the growth rather than technology. And when the banks stopped doing proper trading, they were left with a very big cost basis that was catered to all this in-house trading now that isn't there. And that was weighing down on the performance, that was weighing down on the nimbleness, that was weighing down on the ability to react to market conditions. Then regulation came in and sucked even more of the profitability because that was a big ticket that I had to invest in. And I think all these things led to the fact that I have a very, very, very big fixed cost that is very hard for me to move. And that's eating into my behavior. And in a down market, it's visible that it's eating into my profitability, into my scale. And as you look at all this fixed cost, whether it's bad process or antiquated technology, and you look to reinvent it at such a large scale, the question is, well, if I'm reinventing it, do I need to build my own? So I think the ecosystem was forced to make that decision. I need to really readjust because I have very, very big cost structure with a down market. And technology came on the stage where it's so nimble, and all these fintechs came in and said, well, I can actually
help
do that externally. And if I can do it externally and share the cost, it's even double the benefit. So I think it was just the growth of the early, late 1990s, early 2000s.
Pressures of where people
changes the whole dynamics I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time. I really think it's an interesting time in the space and something which we haven't ever seen before in the market. I've been in financial technology for pushing 20 years, and I think this is probably one of the really interesting phases of that sort of growth. Speaking of interesting phases and growth, we've spoken about Access Fintech and what you've been doing, and it's a really exciting time for it. What's coming up? What can you tease us with?
I look at it as years. 2016 was about building a basic demo, sell a demo. 2017 was getting it to an initial working product. In 2018, we actually went live, so we have clients on sell side, buy side, and started off the custody ecosystem. 2019 for me is about the network. If all I did was build a better mousetrap for my exceptions in-house, then any bank or buy side can say build versus buy. The minute you create a network out of it and I can collaborate, goes back to that key word, collaboration, that's where scale comes in. And this year we're starting to see the collaboration between banks and buy side and custodians, fund administrators suddenly coming in, and the network harnesses the entire savings. That's when I really can look at how this process makes my operations cheaper, quicker, nimbler, etc. So this year is network year. How do we create that ecosystem? We have a lot of islands, but now we're starting to create that. The other thing that we're doing, which is important, is actually helping the industry by defining standard workflows. So if I've got a problem on a workflow on the life cycle of processing a trade, every bank and buy side that processes a similar kind of trade has the similar kind of problem. If we can actually create a standard template for behavior, not for data, for behavior, again, then I can inherit that from that inventory. So I'm starting to build an inventory of use cases that people can borrow from and adapt. So network, reusable models, that's 2019 for us.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah, very.
And lots of things to watch and progress. It's no wonder you're listed in here. It is a esteemed panel of judges that we pulled together, all of whom know their stuff, and to take a position in there so quickly. I mean, as one of the younger companies in this magazine, I think it's a great testament to what you guys are doing.
We are honoured, as I said, to be there. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a pleasure. Listen, for people watching at home, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way, if they've liked what they've heard and interested to find out more, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. We have a website. We don't invest in it too much. I say if you want to reach out, LinkedIn is the best thing.
Great stuff.
Access Fintech.
Well, listen, Roy, it's been great speaking to you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to all of you for watching, and we'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks for watching.